Welcome to another episode of Dil Se Stories. We have a very special guest once again, the artist Hyphen. Welcome.
Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Of course, very excited to have you. So, um, you are in the US
Yes,
and you
sir.
live in Texas, and you have the tag name, the Malayali Cowboy, right?
Yes, sir.
Which
Hyphen
is,
Thazhath.
yeah, really, amazing, right? So, tell me about your musical journey. How did you get interested in music? How did you get here um, for our audience? And yeah, so before we get into everything,
Hmm.
briefly introduce yourself in terms of how would you summarize an introduction for our audience?
So I'm Hyphen Thazhath. I am a musician based in Houston, Texas. I record and release my own music, which you can find on all platforms, streaming platforms under Hyphen Thazhath. Um, I also have, as of a little over a year, I'm a one-man band. This is a pretty unique setup. Um, the best way for me to describe it, so I'm a looper musician. I build entire songs from scratch and I jam on top of it. It's all instrumental. Nobody wants to hear me sing with this accent, so I keep it instrumental, right? Uh, so yeah, I'm a one-man band, multi-instrumentalist and entertainer.
Awesome. And I'm Dr. Parag Bharadwaj. So, going back to that question, please share with us your musical journey.
My musical journey. So I am 34, born in 89, right? Music was always a huge part of my life. Growing up, Bollywood music. Um, I always loved singing, even though I'm not a very good singer. I guess that's something you can just train and become better at. But I've always loved singing. Uh, it all starts. So I was born in Kerala. Right after I was born, we moved to Doha. Well, my dad was already working in Doha, so we went to Doha, um, Qatar. Moved to Abu Dhabi shortly after. I started school in Abu Dhabi. Music, singing, movie songs, and all was always a huge part of life. I loved it. Went back to Kerala for 3 years in the fourth grade, starting from fourth grade. At that point, living with my grandparents in Kerala, going to school there, there was this old guitar in the cupboard in my grandparents' house, in my uncle's room where we stayed. There was a really old guitar, and I remember there was this teacher there. This is fourth or fifth grade. We are in our school. They bought this music teacher every week, so people had the option of going and learning guitar from him. So I asked my granddad if I could do that, and my granddad very graciously uh, took this guitar out of the cupboard, went and took it to somebody in the middle. I don't know where he found a guitar technician in Kerala, in Komaragam at the time, but he found somebody to work on it, put a new set of strings on it, and he gave it to me. He said, "Go, look, if you want to do that, go learn that." Right? Super cool. I remember going to the class, the teacher trying to teach me Mustafa, Mustafa, right? I love that song. But fourth grade, you're too young, the motor skills are not quite there. It was too much. I didn't pick it up, so I just went put the guitar back, and that was the end of that. Fast forward a few years, I want to say seventh grade, still in India, sixth or seventh grade, walking around in my neighborhood in Kerala, Sony Walkman, right? Backstreet Boys, Millennium album, right? Backstreet's back, all right, right? That was huge, right? The pop music, walking around singing and dancing, that huge. I loved it. And the older kids in the neighborhood, they were like, "Hey, what are you listening to?" And I was like, "Hey, Backstreet Boys, man." They're like, "Oh, come on, we'll show you something else." And they took me to their house, my friend and his older brothers, and they took out the CD, and the first thing they put on, it was a collection of videos, rock and roll, heavy metal, right? So Guns N' Roses, Don't Cry, right? So I'm watching this, I'm like, what is going on here? Like these guys with long hair and guitars, and And Don't Cry is a ballad, so perfect way to introduce somebody to it, right? And then they kick into the guitar solo, and I'm like, oh my god, that's insane. So and then they showed me Iron Maiden right after that. So that was a huge turning point in my life. Instant metalhead. Went home, called my dad who was in Abu Dhabi, and I was like, when you come next, I want you to bring me Iron Maiden, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, all these bands, which he did. And there was no turning back from there. Huge metalhead fan. Go back to Dubai, Abu Dhabi for the rest of schooling in eighth grade and eighth and the rest of high school. Ninth grade is when I decided I want to play guitar. Never been a good student in school. Was just never been a good student. Um Told my dad that I really want to play guitar because I really want to do this, and he was like, "I'll make you a deal." I guess for him it was very easy to not buy me a guitar. He's like, "If you get A plus in all of your subjects for your next set of examinations, I'll buy you a guitar." Right. So that was the one and only time in my life when I was actually motivated to study all of this stuff, and I got my A plus in all of my subjects, right? And never did it after that again either. But my dad kept his word and got me my first guitar. That was the beginning of my journey, and been non-stop ever since.
What a story! Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I find your Instagram uploads very intriguing. I mean, you
Hmm.
you mentioned that you were very influenced by heavy metal, but what I found really intriguing was you seem to combine somewhere, in your music. Uh, you go back to your roots, the Indian music,
Correct.
right? So, are you able to completely bifurcate the two, or even when you're playing Western music, you somehow bring in the Indian influence?
So bringing in the Indian influence is a lot more recent. I was actually completely heavy metal for a long time, right? And I guess that came from a place of anger at certain things, like not being allowed to go and study music after high school. Because at that point in time, well, the excuse that was given to me was that the music schools in India were all in warehouses and godowns and stuff at the time. They were just starting. And because of that, my parents were not comfortable sending me there. They were like, "We want you to go and get an education." And yada, yada. Um, so I wasn't particularly happy with the options that I was given, and the option that I don't want to use the word forced to take, but when I was told that, okay, you're not going to study what you want to study, so pick something else, I was like, well, if I'm not going to study what I want to study, then I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I guess that was not the best way to go about it, because I was put in mechanical engineering, right? And I was like, oh god, I hated that situation. I'm not a mechanical engineer by any means, right? So that particular college and in Pune, and the hostel and the environment, and not having a laptop to create music, and like very bare bones situation, obviously had there was a lot of anger, a lot of frustration there. So heavy metal was home for me for a long time. uh, however, I was in a band during college years in India, and we did a lot of fun things. um, it was interesting. Recently, after that came here, we migrated. I started basically building everything that I wanted to build, like my life as a musician on my own, independently. And then you start letting go of all of the anger. So once all of the anger is gone from the picture, now you're open to new things, you know, and different kinds of music. I met my wife, who also introduced me to a lot of beautiful music, constantly introducing me to music. And it started with wanting to do different things, not be pigeonholed into anything. And then obviously, when you want to do different things, you go back to your roots, you bring your roots into it. And it's a way for me to have this while I'm doing what I want to do, I also want to share with people my love for music. And the way I figured is if I did only heavy metal, which is what I love and not necessarily everybody else, the larger picture, the community, the people, not everybody wants to only hear heavy metal all the time, right? So I figured the best way for me to do this would be to infuse the music that everybody loves with what I love to do as well, and create something that fulfills me as well as makes everybody happy around me. That's how that's what you're seeing today on Instagram.
That's quite a transition, right? It's very
Yeah.
interesting. And so heavy metal and even the Bollywood music you describe,
Hmm.
I mean, quite far apart, right? Um,
Correct.
what's the middle ground between the two that you were able to find?
I guess I have to demonstrate.
Can you?
Absolutely, I would love to. In fact, the name of your show is Dil Se, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I guess I just have to demonstrate because I am sitting in my one-man band setup right now. You just can't see it around me, but we are very much in my. So, okay, I guess I'll demonstrate my one-man band setup to you. Would you like to check it out? Yeah,
that'll be fantastic. It's a treat.
it'll be my pleasure to do so. So, let's see. Is everything on? So, I have this. I don't know if you can see. I have this little pad right here.
Yeah,
Okay, it's
we see
got.
it.
My band is set, drums, bass, and keyboard.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf
Mhm.
of the audience as well. Uh, so, uh, you started off with the guitar. Now
Mhm.
you're a one-man band.
So,
So tell us a little bit more about being a one-man band.
so what it is are you familiar with Ed Sheeran? What he does, the looping
I
concept.
No, you can explain it to us, please.
So, what a looper is basically a recorder, right? So, I'm gonna try to make this as short as possible. So, if you think about a loop, so when you punch in and you punch out, and what you play between your punch in and punch out basically starts looping over and over again, right? So, the thing about looping, being a looping musician, is there's two aspects to it. The first aspect is your punch in and punch out has to be perfectly in time with what you're playing. So you play a section like for a drum beat, you can't hear it when I'm doing it. But for example, if I was doing tum ta, tum ta, ta, and I punch out, right? So when you punch in and punch out, your timing has to be perfect and then it starts looping. If your timing is not perfect, it loops off time, which doesn't work. The second thing, you cannot make a mistake. But if you make a mistake, the mistake loops along with the whole loop, right? So you have to be perfect in your playing and be perfect in your timing in order to pull off this phenomenon called looping, right? So it starts with the beat. I play finger drums on my pad. People will see this in the video that will follow, right? Um, it's I play finger drums on pads, followed by adding keyboards if there's keyboards in the song. So once you start a bass loop, that starts looping over and over again, and then you can overdub new loops. You can layer new loops on top of that, right? So then I would layer bass guitar. I would layer keyboards if there's keyboards. I would layer maracas if there's maracas. Whatever special effects need to be layered, I have pads for that. I would layer rhythm guitar on top of that. If it needs harmonica, I would put harmonica into it. If it needs a saxophone, I would put a saxophone into it. And then basically grab my guitar and start jamming. So what I would do with my guitar is now I've created the entire band and I would emulate the singer with my guitar, right? And this can be done for any genre of music. And I pretty much cover every genre of music when I do my one man band. Lots of Bollywood songs that I've converted, and it's a lot of fun. So that is the concept of looping the one man band, basically creating the entire song from scratch. I can't do any song if there's a song with a lot of different dynamic changes that doesn't quite work. But there are tons and tons of songs that basically have the same progression going throughout the song. So those are the songs that I can recreate in this format and have a blast.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds very sophisticated. It seems like you have to be in perfect sync, right? Uh,
Yes.
Fascinating stuff. Uh, so you get invited quite a bit to perform, and you have
Mhm.
a good fan following. So tell us about, have you ventured into Bollywood or the Indian music scene? Do you have any plans? What can we expect in the future from you? Is basically the question.
So, so what I want to bring, so what I want to do is I want to play at events. So okay, I guess a better way to answer this question is what I don't want to do, right? I think it's important to know what you don't want. So what I don't want is I don't want the touring musician life, right? I don't, I've done that. Uh, Musicians generally tend to love it, but the whole living out of a suitcase, traveling all day long, playing for 2 hours, especially in America where the infrastructure is so like it's not it's not very welcoming. It's different in different parts of the world. Like it's I'm not a touring person. I like home base, right? So my thing is I like to travel. I do like to travel for shows, and I will for the right kind of bookings and stuff. I'll travel, but I want to come back home. I don't want to be on the road, right? Um, what I bring to the table with my whole one man band setup is this ambiance, right? It can be a it can be an it can be both an active and a passive experience. Like if it's like a wedding cocktail hour, it's not a very active experience. People are not sitting there and paying attention to you. Everybody's socializing, right? So it can be, but when people do figure out what's happening, they're like, oh, dude, there's this one man band guy. Like, look at him. He's playing drums and he's playing all the instruments. He's creating everything. So it happens every single time. What happens is there'll be a group of people around me, right? And it'll turn into a game. I turn it into a game. It's the most fun thing. I might give them some trivia about the song before I start. And then I'll be like, okay, so now you all try to guess what I'm doing. So while I build the loop, they're like, dude, we know the song, and somebody will guess it, right? So I've I've curated set lists. I curate set lists for every show that I play, and I choose songs that have this touch of nostalgia to it, right? So I choose songs that everybody knows and loves. I don't play obscure songs, so it's like a hit of nostalgia in a format that they've never seen before. It's a lot of fun. So I just want to add. So that's what I have to share with the world is my love for music. This one man band setup is like a childhood dream for me, right? Like 100% freedom. I don't have to rely on anybody or anything. I do everything. I create the entire ambience for this event. So this is my love of music that I am able to share with the world, with people, and that's what I want to do. I just want to bring my magic to whoever wants to have it.
So you clearly have the passion for music, and you have great style to go along with it.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned that you compose, you record. Um, I'm sorry, I haven't heard your composition. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of music is that? Is it mostly Western, or do you delve into the Indian aspect of things?
So it's that goes right back to what I was talking about, not wanting to be pigeonholed. So I started off with a heavy metal version of a very folk song, right? Kutanad and Punjele, which I sang also in Malayalam.
Which,
Uh,
which, by the way, I'm sorry to interject. Which I heard and
uh,
I loved it. You know, and
Thank you so much.
I'd heard it many times when I was growing up, and
Hmm.
when I heard it, I mean, that's why I reached out to you. I was like, I got to talk to him.
Yeah,
It was just amazing and amazing. I would request the audience to actually check out your Instagram account and listen to that piece along with the many others that you have on.
it's on YouTube as well. So I don't have a lot of songs out because I just started my solo record thing, and as soon as I started my solo record thing of recording and putting out stuff, then the it everything developed into my one man band. So my entire focus has been building this one man band as a business. Um, so the unfortunate part of that is my solo recording thing sort of took a backseat. So I have 3 or 4 songs out as of right now, which I started last year. There's that. There's an instrumental sort of heavy metal spiritual sort of song. There's uh, a rap song, a love song that's about my wife, which when I started writing, it describes how we met and all of those initial how I felt when when my entire life changed. Right, I meet this force of nature. Right, this beautiful dancing, happy, completing my soul force of nature. The I started writing the music. I had this very dancey, catchy hook in my head already, and I started writing lyrics. And I was like, and there's this just started flowing, and it was rhyming, and I was like, I can't fit all of this into singing. Oh my god, does that mean I have to rap for the song? And I was like, I guess I'm rapping for the song. So that's there too. It's called Dance With Me. It's on Spotify and YouTube and all of that. So, and technically speaking, I have songs written and ready to be recorded that will take me the next 5 years to release. So it's just finding time in between this madness of life to do it.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, so is that because you have a lot going on, or you have so much material that it'll take you that long to get
There's a
everything out?
lot of material, and also with the popularity of the whole one man band thing rising, the bookings are going up. I currently have, so with the one man band thing, like I said, it's covers, right? It's covers of all these different genres. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? Same thing for music too. So I have like a catalog of about 60 songs, right? Uh, Memorizing 60 songs, memorizing one instrument for 60 songs is quite something. Memorizing all the instruments for 60 songs requires my entire brain, and it requires constant practice, right? So every day there's 2 3 hours that go into just practicing the one man band thing, and I sit down, record. It's a great adventure. I love it. I'm so immersed in it, and I have a partner who's so supportive of everything that I do. Beautiful.
Wow, it's amazing to just listen to the intensity of what it involves, right? Because
Hmm.
when somebody who's probably not as well versed like myself and watching somebody, I mean, of course, it is very impressive that you're able to perform, so many instruments and coordinate everything. But it also sounds like, hey, that's a lot of brain power that you're using at the same time. So how long is a typical performance? how long do you go before you say, hey, you know what? This is where my brain is getting tired.
So my brain does not get tired playing music, right? My brain can get tired socializing. My brain can get tired being in crowds, being around people. My brain can get tired doing anything and everything except playing music. Okay. So to answer your question, I don't like to play less than 60 minutes with the one man band setup, right? Because I feel like when you set up everything, because it is quite an extensive, intricate setup. So just setting up everything itself takes me like an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? Uh, with the setup and the sound check and everything. After that, it takes me at least 30 minutes to just get into the groove and like start having fun. Because everybody, there's nervousness at the beginning of everything. So just get into the groove and start loosening up and having fun. So I prefer to play at least a minimum of 60 minutes. And people who book me and who understand what they're booking will never book me for less than 60 minutes to 90 minutes. Now, if they book me for the minimum 60 minutes that I would like to play, at the end of that 60-minute mark, I'm like, I just want to play more. Can I just play more? Like I have, like I said, I have 60 songs. That's a good 3-4 hours worth of music. So I can just keep going and going and going. I don't get tired playing music. Not a thing.
That is amazing. Um, yeah, I say it because, when you talk to most people, they say, I can't wait to clock out of my job, at the end of the day.
Right, right.
And here you are because, you're enjoying what you do. You say, hey, I just want to keep on going on. And what was fascinating to me is the amount of time it takes for you to set it all up. I didn't realize it takes that much time.
It's a Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to plug in and place, and I have this beautiful setup. It's like I'm sitting in my office right now. It's like I'm sitting in my one man band setup. You can't really see everything, but as you know, there's a mixer, there's pads, there's my speakers, there's my three guitars. There's quite a lot of things to set up and sound check, and a lot of cables, and you have to with all the cables, there's cable management. You got to make everything look aesthetic. So there's candles all over the place. So it's beautiful. Yeah.
So do you have any particular favorite when it comes to instrument? Of course, you started off with the guitar.
Guitar is my first love. My first love. Yeah.
All right. Um, Anything else you want to share with our audience before we wind up? Because this has been very interesting. Because I think what I actually learned from you is, like, I wasn't just talking to a musician; I was talking to a philosopher as well. I mean, your life's journey and the way you've described things and how the passion that you have for what you do is just amazing. And not just for what you do, but also for the people you love, right? The people you care
Yeah.
for. Yeah. And
hmm It's it's interesting. See, because I feel like it's important. See, to address one thing that you said about how people can't wait to clock out of work. That's because that's work, right? If you do what you love, it's never work, right? I will play all night long at an event, 3 hours, whatever. Everybody is having the time of their life. They're all singing and singing along, dancing to the music. Everybody is appreciating it. Everybody's having a great time. I pack everything up after that. Like, I'm tired. My entire body is tired, but I am. My entire being is roaring with happiness. I'm like, my life is this is what makes me happy. This is what fulfills me, and it's like I'm just like roaring. It's I love it, and I feel like it's all about being authentic in what you do, right? Even with the Mallu cowboy thing, like, okay, I'm sitting in front of you. I have my cowboy hat on. You can't see I'm not wearing my boots right now, but and I'm not pretending to be anything other than who I am, right? So you were fascinated with the term Mallu cowboy, right? So allow me to explain why I'm the Mallu cowboy. It's not something that I picked up after coming to Texas, right? It's not something that I had to pick up and put on to like have this unique identity. No, my father, all of my life, right? My father loved Western movies. That is, so my father loved a couple of different things when it came to cinema. He loved Westerns, old Westerns. He loved Bruce Lee and he loved action movies, right? So my dad, growing up in Abu Dhabi and everything, was so different from everybody else because he would always have these big belt buckles. He would somehow find boots from somewhere. So he would be wearing boots whenever he could. He had these big belt buckles. So he was like a cowboy. You know? So we had that huge influence in our life. So we always loved, like we had the little toy guns with the draw and everything. So it's my brothers are also the same way. They all wear boots and the big buckles, and it all came from my dad. It's like nothing. I have never tried to be anything other than who I am.
I couldn't have asked for a better ending for this interview because I think you bring a lot to the table than more than just music. Is what I'm trying to say. And thank you so much for being so candid. And
Thank you for having me.
I would love to have you back. And a request to the audience. One thing I just learned towards the end is you like to make people happy is what I gather, right? And
I
that
love it.
feeds you, right? And so
Mhm.
so if you want to experience some of the happiness that our guest exudes and shares and sends out, please watch his social media accounts, and they're fascinating, very creative, full of energy, and very inspiring.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you, Hyphen, and we'll have you back. Okay,
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Happy Sunday.
you too.